Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is always to take stacks of complex source material, filter out all the noise, and just hand you the essential insight.
Right?
And today, we are wrestling with well, something that's probably one of the most stubborn, draining forms of friction that exists.
Right.
We're talking about jealousy.
And we are deliberately bypassing the usual self-help narrative on this. The source material you shared, it presents this really radical structural idea
Which is?
that jealousy is frequently not proof of a personal failing or, low self-esteem. It's not some character defect you need to fix.
Okay, so if it's not that, what is it?
The analysis frames it as a logical, almost predictable signal, a signal that's sent directly by the competitive social structure that you live in.
Yeah.
It's basically a structural byproduct.
A structural byproduct. Okay, let's unpack that. Our
Yeah.
goal for this deep dive is to get into the three root causes the sources identify. But before we get into all that heavy intellectual stuff,
Yeah.
the material insists on a first step.
A critical first.
It calls it stabilize.
That's right. And the directive is really strict on this. Stabilize first, then you analyze. When jealousy hits, the impulse is to just jump into your head.
Yeah,
Right?
totally. Why am I feeling this? This is crazy. How do I stop it?
Exactly. And the sources argue that that whole intellectual loop just makes things worse. It amplifies the feeling.
Yeah.
So this stabilization phase, it demands that we just pause the whole debate. We're not talking about shoulds or rights and wrongs. Not
So
yet.
you're not trying for immediate relief. You're just aiming for neutral observation. So
Right.
what does that 10-minute practice actually look like?
It's really about rerouting your mind and your body. That's what breaks the feedback loop. So for 10 minutes, your absolute first instruction is, do not try to change anything.
Nothing.
You don't rebut it. You don't justify it. You just acknowledge its presence as a thing that is happening right now.
Then how do you start that?
First, you pay really precise attention to its physical location.
Hmm.
Where is the jealousy actually showing up in your body? Is it that, that heavy tightness in the chest or a knot deep in your stomach? Maybe it's a dryness in your throat or even tension in your forehead. By finding its physical address, you move it from this abstract mind problem into a concrete body sensation.
I love that shift from the abstract to the tangible. So once you've located it, what's next?
Once you've found the sensation, you just note the most dominant thought or image that keeps looping.
Okay.
It could be a specific comparison, a memory, whatever it is. And the critical step here, and this is the hard part, is you let that thought stand there without explaining it, without fighting it, without trying to make it sound better than it is.
You just let the full, sometimes ugly reality of the thought be present.
Precisely. You mark it clearly in your mind. This is jealousy. And then, only then, you gently bring your attention back to something neutral.
Like you're breathing.
Your breathing, the feeling of your weight in the chair, the sounds in the room, any neutral anchor.
And the material really hammers this point home, right? That the phase is a success even if the feeling doesn't go away.
Exactly. The goal isn't to make it disappear. It's just to establish a little boundary between you and the phenomenon.
You've stabilized the crisis.
You've created the space you need for the actual analysis. And now we can move into part 2, threshold. This is the pivot. We go from feeling to analysis, and the sources give a pretty clear warning here.
Right, this is where it gets intellectually demanding. The sources warn that what's coming up isn't really designed to make you feel better. It's about providing radical structural clarity.
That's the threshold. We're about to look at the actual mechanisms, the comparison, the scarcity, the outsourcing of self-worth, all the things society kind of trains us to just accept, which is why this part might not feel easy.
But it's the only way to understand why jealousy keeps coming back, even after you think you've solved it.
Right. You're choosing to stop treating the symptoms and start examining the faulty architecture that's producing them in the first place.
But if you cross that threshold, you have to confront the most radical claim the sources make.
We do. And the conclusion, stated plainly, is this. In the current mainstream social structure, defined by competition, a non-jealous person is abnormal.
Whoa, wait. That is a massive claim. Doesn't that just give everyone an excuse? I mean, we're taught that overcoming jealousy is a sign of psychological health.
It is a massive claim. And that's the right question to ask. The sources are clear. This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about diagnosing the environment.
Okay.
If you exist in a system that demands you compare yourself to others for everything, status, resources, identity, then the absence of jealousy often means one of three things.
And those are?
1, you've reached some profound, almost monastic state of non-attachment. 2, you've just gone completely numb to it all. Or 3, and this is critical, you've been so excluded from the competition that you've just given up on its metrics entirely.
So the structure is a program running in the background.
Hmm.
And jealousy isn't a bug, it's a standard output.
Exactly. The structure demands the feeling. And that brings us right to root cause number one. Jealousy is a logical result of what the sources call a forced consciousness structure.
Break that down for us. How is this comparison thing perpetually taught?
Well, it's everywhere. From the moment we enter any institution. It starts with grades in school, who's smarter. Then it moves to the office rankings, performance reviews, who got the bigger bonus.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our social lives, dating, buying a house.
Who's more desirable? Who can afford what?
Yes, you are continuously programmed to use these external metrics to measure your own worth. It's not really a choice.
And the emotional math of that program, as the sources lay it out, it's just brutal. If I'm forced to compare, then someone else's success has to equal a negation of my own worth.
It creates a zero-sum game inside your own head. If the system says success is a limited resource, then someone else being loved or getting promotion means you're being deprived.
Their ascent is your failure.
It's automatically coded that way because your self-definition is tied to where you stand relative to them.
So jealousy stops being just an emotional problem in that context.
Yeah.
It's just a logical output of the system's competitive input.
Precisely. And that leads us perfectly into what fuels this whole engine. Root cause number two, the manufactured illusion of scarcity.
And this goes way beyond just material things, right? The idea that there's a fixed amount of everything important.
Absolutely. We get scarcity when it comes to oil or land. But modern society, especially media, constantly pushes the narrative that the important intangibles are also limited.
Like love or opportunity or attention.
Exactly. Love, attention, recognition, success. This isn't always a real scarcity. It's often manufactured specifically to drive competition.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah.
Manufactured versus natural scarcity?
Sure. A naturally scarce thing is, I don't know, a rare mineral. A manufactured scarcity is the idea that there are only a handful of truly meaningful jobs in the world, or that attention from your peers is some hyper-limited thing you have to fight for.
And that mindset creates a kind of survival anxiety.
It forces it to the surface. It completely dictates how we see someone else's game. That anxiety translates directly into jealousy. It triggers the belief that if he gets praised, I have less social capital.
If she gets noticed, I'm being ignored because attention is this finite pie.
And the primal fear underneath it all is, if I don't fight, if I'm not constantly vigilant, I'm going to be eliminated, left behind. Every slice of the pie someone else gets feels like a direct threat to your survival.
So again, jealousy isn't some private character flaw. It's a logical byproduct of survival anxiety that's generated by this scarcity mindset.
It is. And this all culminates in root cause number three, the structural hijacking of consciousness through outsourced self-worth.
I think this one hits closest to home for anyone on modern platforms. They've essentially turned self-worth into, what, a tradable commodity?
It's maybe the sneakiest mechanism of the whole structure. We are taught from such an early age to use external feedback to define who we are. Our identity is built not on our own values, but on market reaction.
The sources list the exact metrics, don't they? Being liked, being chosen, being followed, being envied.
Being approved. Look at that list. It defines self-worth as a constantly fluctuating stock price based on external demand. And once your self-worth is outsourced like that, once your house is built on sand, the status of others becomes your only reference point.
Your internal stability it loses its foundation.
It's gone.
That's terrifying. If my value depends on likes and someone else is getting more of them, my value instantly drops in real time.
Which is why jealousy is so instant and reflexive in those spaces. The system is structurally unstable by design, and that brings us to the final piece, the systemic amplifier that makes sure none of these roots ever die.
Modern media and culture. The sources say it doesn't just display reality, it systematically manufactures comparison scenarios.
That manufacturing process is the key. It's an engine designed to keep all three roots, comparison, scarcity, and outsourced worth, constantly activated. Think about the content you see. You're not shown the messy reality of a successful life.
No, you're fed success templates. Curated careers, edited happiness,
Filtered vacation shots.
and that constant exposure, the sources call it a state of permanent competitive vigilance. Jealousy isn't an occasional thing anymore. It's a background process that's always on.
Always. The media optimizes for envy. Envy is a powerful motivator for engagement, for consumption. It creates desire and anxiety at the same time. It convinces you that the scarce resource, the perfect life, is just within reach.
If you just buy this product or follow this person.
Right. And this brings us to the uncomfortable truth the source material makes us confront. If all these structural roots are constantly being watered, how effective can our personal jealousy management techniques really be?
Not very, I'm guessing.
The sources are crystal clear on this. Any coping mechanism, deep breathing, affirmations, just thinking positively, can only work for a moment.
Why?
Because the underlying environment, the competitive structure, is still there. You're trying to regulate your internal temperature while standing in a furnace.
The jealousy comes back not because you're broken or unfixed.
But because the soil is still there. The structure is designed to recreate the feeling over and over again.
And knowing that that clarity is what gives you true choice, you now know the feeling isn't necessarily proof of your own failure. It's a powerful signal from the structure you're in.
Exactly.
So with that clarity, what are the paths forward that the sources present?
There are really two. Path one is you acknowledge the reality of the structure, and you keep regulating yourself within it. You know the rules of the game, but now you see the signals as structural feedback, not personal doom.
And the second path.
That's the more radical one. You start to actually explore different ways of living and collaborating where comparison and scarcity, well, where they aren't the core of the system anymore.
And the sources give examples like intentional communities or co-ops, places where recognition is shared, not fought over.
Right. But the core decision isn't which path to choose right away. It's the initial reframing.
And that reframing is the key insight. The knowledge to tell the difference between a structural input and a personal defect. The material ends with a final provocative thought. They say it's a psychological fact, not just comfort.
This is the definitive takeaway. When a person stops treating a structural problem as a personal defect, clarity itself has already begun to happen.
The moment you realize the system might be faulty, not you, that fundamentally changes your relationship with the feeling. It's the beginning of reclaiming your agency. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the architecture of jealousy.
Clarity isn't the solution, but it is the foundation for freedom. And that's where the journey really starts.